mountainous, what do you mean, what do you mean, like meadow, a mountainous meadow, right? Like a piece of grass, like a meadow. So a mountainous meadow. Again, it doesn't have a mountain, that's negated, but the meadow, it's like a positive phenomenon, and so that's affirmative. It's not, so the words, or not just the words, but the meaning about mountainous meadow, that phenomenon is an affirming negative. Okay? Now give me another. If I give you another example, Ronit is she's a human being. Ronit is a human being. Let's assume they were only men and women. Okay. Ronit is a human being, but she's not a man. So because I know that whoever is a human being must be either a man or a woman, I know by implication that she's a woman. And there's another one, Fat Devadatta doesn't eat at night. And he's not on a diet. So that means Fat Devadatta eats during the day. Okay, so even without saying it, Fat Devadatta does not eat at night. So based on that, I can know he eats during the day, because he's, overweight. So therefore, that's like an example they usually give. So there are affirmative negations and non-affirmative negations, right? Or you could say, Ini Devadatta eats during the day, or eats during the night, okay? That is the other way around. So anyway, in either cases, because of the way the words are formulated, it's an affirmative negation, because the fact that he eats or doesn't eat is affirmed, or that she's a woman is affirmative in the sense of, though you negate just one thing, but through the context of those words, something else is implied. So that's how we differentiate between affirmative negations and non-affirmative negations. Now, how could an affirmative negation be important? Are there affirmative negations that are important? Yes. Emptiness is a non-affirmative negation. Because when you realize emptiness, you have to negate. You cannot have anything appear, anything affirmative appear, because otherwise you fall into the extreme of reification again. So when you understand emptiness, you're just denying the existence of inherent existence. That's it. To that mind, only the lack of inherent existence appears, because if something else like pot or bowl appears, right away it appears to be inherently existent. So to understand the difference between an affirmative and non-affirmative negation is really important for the understanding of emptiness. Okay. But when we say a non-affirmative negation is an object of refuge, that seems like, what? Just a negation? Okay. A non-affirmative negation can be an ultimate object of refuge. Here it says non-affirming or non-affirmative negations are not ultimate objects of refuge. Is that correct? No, it's not correct. We're on page 49, and now there's a person who holds 3 assertions, and now the last assertion is non-affirming negations are not ultimate objects of refuge, in the middle of 49. So someone says non-affirming negations are not ultimate objects of refuge. Is that correct? Can there be a non-affirming negation that is an ultimate object of refuge? Cessation. Cessation. Yeah. What emptiness? Yeah, very good. There you go. You can answer it. See? So the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, that's a non-affirming negation, but it's also an ultimate object of refuge. Okay? It's really like it's like these brain games, like you have these apps on your smartphone or computer where they test your mind. Like everything you've learned now, you need to, and it really does that to your mind. It helps you to think, to just read through some of those lines in Tibetan. I mean, I've written to you in a clear style. Sometimes it's not even written in a clear style. It tells you these warped sentences, like you have to first make sense of them, and then later on it says something slightly different. So really what it's saying is, a non-affirming negation is not an ultimate object of refuge. First, to figure out what they're saying. It's all to train the mind, right? To be attentive, to pay attention to what was said before, what was said later. It's done on purpose. It's never written in a straightforward manner. Here I've written it down straightforwardly because we don't have the time. They can't make you guess what this means. And you now need to check, does that make sense or not? Check it with what Benji Sontapa says. It's all part of developing our intelligence. Because intelligence and wisdom is not like, Tibetans say memorizing is a type of intelligence, being able to retain information, but that itself is not enough. On top of that, being able to think logically, to be able to think like a chess player, it's also a sign of, or being able to understand the difference between affirmative, non-affirmative. There's so mathematical intelligence, so many different versions of intelligence. And these texts try to often train all of those aspects in a certain way. Mathematical, no, but a lot of other aspects, memory, etc.
Is it for real? Was there a real person who understood Maitreya as saying these three things which now we say they are false?
Maybe, yeah.
How did he come to understand?
It's not important. Maybe they didn't exist. Maybe there was someone, maybe there wasn't. But most important is, maybe it was misunderstood and there was the danger it could happen to us. So therefore that's mentioned. I don't know. Some of these, someone says, are pretty absurd. But honestly, we sometimes also have absurd thoughts and absurd ideas. So no surprise here. Regarding the statement that the two Rupakayas are ultimate objects of refuge, someone asserts the two Rupakayas are not ultimate objects of refuge because they're conventional objects of refuge. The two Rupakayas are conventional objects of refuge because they're conventional kayas. Again, conventional, ultimate, come on. Which ultimate are you talking about? They have different meanings. A conventional kaya is different. So it's not correct to say that whatever is a conventional kaya is necessarily a conventional object of refuge. So the word conventional is used so many different times, because in Sanskrit it just has all these different meanings. And so there's no rule, you can't use the word in a different context. It was used in different ways. So the word conventional in the term conventional object of refuge and the word conventional in the term conventional kaya have different meanings. The meaning of the word conventional in the term conventional object of refuge is that which, after having traversed a path, is not genuinely final. Okay? I've gone through a path, so having meditated on a path, nonetheless it's not final. That's the conventional refuge. The meaning of the word conventional in the term conventional kaya is that which appears to disciples. That's a new conventional. It appears to disciples. An ultimate kaya does not appear to us. What is an example of an ultimate kaya that doesn't appear to us? The Sambhoga kaya, it does appear to disciples. Well, if it doesn't appear to us, it doesn't mean it doesn't appear to disciples. It appears to our Bodhisattva disciples, so therefore it appears to disciples, right? It's like with the Arya Mahayanists, because some Arya Mahayanists have these qualities, Arya Mahayanists have these qualities. Because it appears to some disciples, it appears to disciples. Okay. So what was the other answer? Huh? Jnanakaya, very good, the Jnanakaya. Very good, excellent. The mind of the Buddha. That doesn't appear to us. Good. So that's an ultimate kaya. So again, another addition. Furthermore, the word ultimate in the term ultimate refuge and the word ultimate in the term ultimate kaya do not have the same meaning, again as before. Ultimate kaya is that which does not appear to disciples, the word ultimate. Okay? So again, all these different terminologies, and we need to be familiar with them. It seems so random, right? But here, this is a good time, because it was right after the true truth were explained in the context of this text. So previously true truth, ultimate conventional, and now we use it slightly differently. Okay, regarding the previous statement that whatever is conditioned, whatever is impermanent, is necessarily false, deceptive. Someone presents a debate. It follows that the law of karma is false. Right? It's false. The law of karma is false. Deceptive, because it is conditioned. The reason I say this is that you previously stated that the true Rupakayas are false or deceptive because they are conditioned. It's actually not a bad argument, right? Oh, the law of karma is false. You could also say, instead of infallible, you could say, it's false. It doesn't work. But false can mean false in so many ways. As in, like, it doesn't work, or it appears one way and it exists in a different way. Therefore, Benjamin Daba says, this is not correct because the words true or false, when investigating whether the law of karma is true or false, and the words true or false, when investigating whether the true Rupakayas are true or false, do not have the same meaning. Right? It can mean so many different things. The words true or false, when investigating whether the law of karma is true or false, refer to being in accordance with reality or not being in accordance with reality, respectively. So is the law of karma in accordance with reality? Does it exist? Yes. Please note that the Tibetan word for false, lua, also means fallible, which is why the law of karma is described as being milua, or infallible. Mi is a negating preposition. However, mi dakpa. Dakpa means permanent, mi dakpa means impermanent. However, the words true or false, when investigating whether the true Rupakayas are true or false, refer to the true truth. Okay, as it went through before. If that were not the case, it would absurdly follow that the law of karma is not true. The consequence of that would be that observing morality would not lead to rebirth in the higher realms, etc. Okay, so that's done, but the rest you can read on your own. Regarding the categorization of objects of refuge into conventional refuge and ultimate refuge, someone holds, just as there are conventional and ultimate objects of refuge, there must also be conventional Dharma jewels and ultimate Dharma jewels. However, this is not correct because this terminology is not used, neither in the sutras nor treatises, and there's no need to use it. I mean, we can of course use new terminology, there's no problem. But he's saying, there's no need for using this terminology, like ultimate object, conventional Dharma jewels and ultimate Dharma jewels. No one used that before. Is there a need to make a new word? No, there isn't. So I have enough problem with the words that are right there. Let's not add to the confusion. Okay. All right, that's one thing. Okay, and then it's again, the same person says something about making up words with this ultimate Sangha jewel. We talk about ultimate refuge, conventional refuge, but ultimate Sangha jewel, ultimate Dharma jewel, no. So again, we don't need those words. So I just mentioned it. No end to it. Oh yes, there is an end. All right. So, that's the one below. So someone asserts the Dharma jewel and the Sangha jewel are not contradictory because the mental consciousness of the Buddha is both. The mental consciousness of the Buddha is the Sangha jewel because it's a Buddha jewel. Oh, here. From the point of view of the Madhyamika Svatantrika tenet system, there's no fault with that assertion that someone is both a Dharma jewel and a Sangha jewel. There's no fault with that assertion because phenomena exist inherently, and their inherent essence can be found when looking among their bases of imputation. Even though a person, for instance, is imputed and does not exist ultimately, but still, they say, it nonetheless exists inherently, and its inherent existence or inherent essence can be found among its aggregates. According to this tenet, the person that is found when searching for the essence of the person among its 5 aggregates is the mental consciousness. Therefore, the mental consciousness of a Buddha is an instance of a Buddha, since it is the person that is found when looking for the essence of the Buddha among his or her aggregates. So the mental consciousness of the Buddha is a Buddha. Since the mental consciousness of the Buddha is a person, is both a Buddha jewel, Buddha, and a Sangha jewel. Furthermore, since it's the mental consciousness of the Buddha, it's also an Arya path, and thus a Dharma jewel. Please note, according to the Madhyamika Svatantrika tenets, even though the mental consciousness of a person is a person, it is not an imputedly existent person, but a substantially existent person. Imputedly and substantially are opposites. So, imputedly means it can only exist because it is imputed. Substantially means it does not depend on imputation, and you can perceive that phenomenon without depending on anything other than itself. The Prasangika says that's impossible. Anything you want to perceive, you always perceive something that is not it. Have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed that when you perceive something, when you actually in reality perceive something, you always perceive something that is not that thing? Right? For instance, when you perceive Leora, you look at her face. It's not Leora. You see her body. That's not Leora. If you see this table, you see this part of the table, but not the other side of the table or the inside of the table. So actually, when you see something, you always see something that is other than itself. Okay? Because nothing exists inherently. But the Svatantrikas say things do exist inherently, so there are some imputedly existent things. For them it is true. For instance, Leora as the person. Well, when you see Leora, you see something other than Leora. In that case, it's true that you don't see Leora directly as she is. But they say, with regard to the substantially existent Leora, her mental consciousness, you perceive the mental consciousness, you don't perceive something other than her. The Prasangika would disagree. They say you perceive a particular moment of the mental consciousness, but not the mental consciousness in general. You say the mental consciousness, you perceive that because you perceive one moment of it, if we were able to perceive it. Right? We only perceive just a moment of something or an aspect of something, never the full thing. Am I making sense? When you perceive your own mind, you perceive one instance of the mind, not the mind itself. And that instance can be, again, subdivided anyway, and you can never say, I perceive that exact moment, so it's even difficult to determine which moment you perceive. But in general, you always perceive something other than the object. Okay? With physical objects, that's pretty obvious. Okay? All right.
This is according to the
Svatantrika.
It can be 3 jewels, but according to
Prasangika? Okay, let me read.
Prasangika, it can be the Buddha jewel and the Sangha jewel.
Yes, there's only a common locus, only something that is both a Buddha jewel and a Sangha jewel. There's nothing that is an Arya jewel, that is a Dharma jewel and an Arya jewel, or something that is a Dharma jewel and a Buddha jewel. There's nothing. This imputed, so here we distinguish between an imputedly existent and a substantially existent person. They say there's something that's not imputed, that's the mental consciousness. The imputedly existent person refers to the person whom we ordinarily identify as a person, the being who is imputed on the basis of any of his or her 5 aggregates. Thus, from the Madhyamika Svatantrika point of view, the imputedly existent Buddha is both a Buddha jewel and a Sangha jewel, but not a Dharma jewel. The imputedly existent Buddha. Okay, that's just the Buddha. That's not the mental consciousness. So there's an imputedly existent Leora and a substantially existent Leora, they say. They have to say that. Because they still talk about an imputed Leora, but that couldn't be her mental consciousness. That is the person that's labeled on the basis of body and mind. So in the lower schools, they do say there's an imputed person, but they also say there's another person, like the essence of the person. So there's an imputed person and the essence of a person. The Prasangika says, yes, there's an imputed person, but no essence of a person. No essence such like the mental consciousness. That is just a part of the person. That's not the person. Okay? However, from the point of view of the Madhyamika Prasangika tenets, a person does not exist inherently and cannot be found when looking among its bases of imputation. A person is merely imputed in dependence on its 5 aggregates and has no existence not dependent on imputation. Therefore, the Buddha's mental consciousness is not a person. It is the Buddha and Dharma jewel, but not a Sangha jewel. Yes, there's something, of course, I said before, there's no common locus, there's nothing that's both a Buddha jewel and a Dharma jewel. That was wrong. There's nothing that is a Sangha jewel and a Dharma jewel, but there's something that is a Buddha jewel and a Dharma jewel. Because a Buddha jewel doesn't have to be a person. A Sangha jewel has to be a person. Right? So there's Buddha jewel, the Jnanakaya of a Buddha, the mind of a Buddha. That is a Buddha jewel and a Dharma jewel. But there's nothing that's all 3. Okay? You see, I'm having a hard time. I have to really be focused because I keep making mistakes. Regarding the difference between causal and resultant objects of refuge. Another, what is a causal object of refuge? What is a resultant object of refuge? Remember that distinction? So, what about the Buddha Shakyamuni? Causal object of refuge or resultant object of refuge? Both. Is that right? Both? Causal object of refuge because? I don't think any other country people answer that question so quickly. I think if I teach this in Germany, people take a little longer to think. So, causal object of refuge. The Buddha is the causal object of refuge because he's the causal object of refuge of whom? Of us. Very good. He's a resultant object of refuge of his former continuum, yes, of him as a non-enlightened person. The former continuum, he's not a resultant refuge of himself, because he himself is not his own refuge. He doesn't need a refuge. But I know what you mean. You mean the former continuum of when he was an ordinary person, and at that time, when you go back, at that time, what was the resultant refuge? From that perspective, his future Buddha. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Furthermore, Buddha Shakyamuni was the resultant object of refuge of the sentient being that was the former continuum of Shakyamuni Buddha. Another person holds a bodhisattva who abides on the uninterrupted path at the end of the continuum as a sentient being. What could that be? Uninterrupted path? You heard that before. When is there an uninterrupted path at the end of the continuum of a sentient being? When is that? At the end of continuum of being a sentient being, that is just before becoming a Buddha. The end of the continuum. So, the end of the continuum, here it's saying that the end of the continuum, the last moment of a sentient being, is an uninterrupted path. Why is that? Why is it an uninterrupted path? That seems like pretty incomplete. Is the last moment of a sentient being, it's saying here it's an uninterrupted path. How could that be? How could that be? It's eliminating the subtlest last obscuration. When you reach the path of release, then that person is a Buddha. Right? So the last bit to remove, the last time they're removing something, that's the subtlest obscuration. And when that cessation is attained, the moment of the release is the moment of Buddha. The path of no more, the uninterrupted path is not the path of no more learning, but the path of release, that is the path of no more learning. That is the first moment of the Mahayana path of no more learning. So the last time, the last job you have as a sentient being is to eliminate what is still to be eliminated. Once you reach the elimination of that, well, then you're Buddha. Pardon?
So why do you leave everything to them?
What? Huh?
Why do you leave everything to the end?
It's just the subtlest one. It's just the subtlest one. Okay. However, that omniscient knower is not the resultant object of it. A bodhisattva who abides on the uninterrupted path at the end of the continuum as a sentient being has the potential to give rise to omniscient knower. However, that omniscient knower is not the resultant object of refuge of that bodhisattva. To give rise to, but that omniscient knower is not the resultant object of refuge of that bodhisattva. So, someone is saying somehow that the bodhisattva who's at the uninterrupted, at the end of being a sentient being, towards the end, so it has the potential to give rise to an omniscient knower. But that omniscient knower is not the resultant object of refuge of that bodhisattva. I don't know why they say that. This is not correct, because that omniscient knower is the result of that bodhisattva. That omniscient knower is the result of that bodhisattva because that bodhisattva generated that omniscient knower. Someone says the omniscient knower, which is generated by a bodhisattva who abides in the uninterrupted path at the end of the continuum, exists simultaneously with that bodhisattva. Ooh, there's that debate exists. It's a little bit difficult. I mean, why would you say? I tell you why it's difficult. When you eliminate ignorance, that's what you do, right? The uninterrupted path eliminates ignorance or the imprints of ignorance. What is that uninterrupted path? It's the mind that realizes emptiness directly. Now the question is, when you're eliminating it, is it there? Is the ignorance there, or is it not there? Are the imprints there or not there? Why are you eliminating them? Well, that's a problem. If they're there, they cannot coexist. A mind that realizes emptiness directly cannot exist at the time when the ignorance, when the mind that realizes emptiness directly cannot exist at the time when there's the ignorance. They don't exist at the same time. You can't perceive the absence of a ghost and perceive a ghost. Those are directly contradictory. So this far it makes sense, doesn't it? When you realize emptiness directly, you're eliminating ignorance, but that ignorance cannot be in that continuum in that moment. Okay? Right? So therefore they say, whatever you're eliminating, in that moment is not present, but you're eliminating it because in the future it can no longer arise. Am I making sense so far? Okay, now listen to the debate. It's really difficult. Now, as Vada says it, you leave everything to the end. Well, you leave that last little bit of imprints, the last bits that you remove now, okay? Everything else you have already removed. But you're about to become a Buddha. What do you call it? You're at the cusp of being a Buddha? Would you say that? Like at the cusp of? Cusp of. Oh, you're at the cusp of. All right, so you're about to become a Buddha, okay? Now, you have that little bit of obscurations left. Now the question is, are there still obscurations when the uninterrupted path arises? Since that which you eliminate and that which eliminates it don't exist at the same time, it's not in the continuum of that person, right? So are they already Buddha? Because the obscurations are no longer in this continuum. And the answer is no, because the cessation has not been attained. But it's no longer there. So in the debate you would say, it's not there. So since the obscuration, that last residue, that last imprint of the ignorance, since that's what keeping a bodhisattva from being omniscient. It's that last bit, some kind of stain on the mind, that last imprint, those last subtlest imprints, they need to be removed, and they are removed during that last uninterrupted path. As Venerable Sangha said, like a moment later you achieve the cessation. In that moment you eliminate those subtlest types, But since you eliminate it while it is not present, so in that moment it's not there, because you're eliminating it, and those two cannot coexist. So why are you not a Buddha? Why are you not omniscient in that moment? Because there's nothing there to keep you. It's gone. So all you can say is like, you haven't reached the cessation yet. Yeah, but what's the difference? What is the difference? It can come back. Yeah, that's what they say. But does it mean it can't come back because it's no longer there? How can it come back? They use the analogy of the uninterrupted path is kicking out the thief, and the path of release is closing the door. Right? That all makes sense, the thief and everything. But the thief can come back. Literally, because the thief, as you're kicking him out, he's still kind of like there. You're pushing him out. That's why the analogy doesn't work all the way. But here it's very clear that they cannot coexist. Since they cannot coexist, it's gone. How could it come back? Even if hypothetically you weren't going to generate the path of release, how could it come back? It's not there. Nothing can come back if it's not there in the first place. See what I'm saying? It's just a debate. I can't answer it. I can only debate it. I don't know.
It sounds like the bodhisattva, the yogi doesn't perceive it at the time of seeing directly emptiness, but it's there and it's uninterruptedly, automatically disappear without him doing anything about it.
No, really as an emptiness directly still needs to be. He still needs to engage. He still needs to enter the meditative absorption, realizing emptiness.
Yes, so he's in destination something is happening